The international break is finally over and it's time for the 12th round of the Premier League. I'm going to preview and predict every single game of this game week. So, starting off, we have Burnley taking on Chelsea at home. And I'm not going to waste too much time on this one. I think it's going to be a pretty straightforward win for Chelsea here. Burnley are probably the worst team in the Premier League, I think it's fair to say, in my opinion, even though the table doesn't really reflect that. I believe that they have managed to win a few more games than maybe they should if you go by expected goals and points. But of course, credit to them, they have managed to get a few decent results. But the playing style just hasn't impressed me all that much, if I'm going to be brutally honest. So I think Chelsea here claiming quite an easy win. In terms of scores, I don't even think Chelsea will concede against this Burnley side, to be honest. I'm going to go with the 2-0 away win for Chelsea here. Moving on to a game that I think is a bit more interesting. We have Bournemouth taking on West Ham at home. And Bournemouth are about as big as Chelsea in terms of being odds favourite here. But this is a bit more of an even game, has to be said, in my opinion. West Ham, of course, having stringed together a couple good results here, beating most notably Newcastle 3-1 at home. Really decent result that, and a good performance overall. Then conceding 2 at home against Burnley isn't too impressive, but they got the win nonetheless. So they actually have a bit of form for the first time in forever, it feels like. Bournemouth, on the other hand, got brutally battered by Aston Villa 4-0 before the international break. I wonder how that will affect the players. They seem to have quite good mentality, so I would expect them to just recoup and be able to perform here. And if this was the other way around, if Bournemouth were traveling to West Ham and London, I would almost be tempted to pick West Ham. However, I'm gonna have to be boring and pick Bournemouth in this game simply because they are the better team. And now they have the home ground advantage as well, and West Ham go away, and they have looked pretty bad so far, mostly this season when going away. So I'm going to have to predict Bournemouth though, even though I think they are too big a favorites on the odds here, and I'm gonna predict a 2-1 Bournemouth win. Moving on to a real rivalry in English football nowadays, it's Brighton taking on Brentford. And yeah, this game always seems quite special when it comes around. And when we look at the head to head here, it's usually quite even in this matchup. The home ground advantage seemed to be quite a big factor when it comes to these two teams. However, Brighton are a big betting favorite here, which I just have to say that I don't really agree with. I think Brentford this season has been the better side out of the two, and Keith Andrews has really, really impressed me. What, yeah, what he has been able to get out of this Brentford side is really quite spectacular. They, of course, lost both Mbeumo and Wissa, and might, dare I say, have looked better this season so far than last season, which is incredibly impressive. Brighton, on the other hand, I have to say that I expected a bit more, and I know that they have some tough injuries, but not really enough for it to be quite a valid excuse for their quite poor results, has to be said. So I actually do favor Brent for this one. These games are often a draw, so I'm tempted to go for that, but just to stick to my guns, I'm actually gonna predict a 2-1 Brentford away win here. Next up, we have Fulham taking on Sunderland at home. And I actually am a bit surprised here as well with the fact that Fulham are quite big favorites because I don't believe that they have been good at all this season. When we look at the recent results here, of course, that win against Wolves 3-0 is very good, but almost everyone beats Wolves nowadays. And then to go away to Everton, who have not been good this season, and lose 2-0 without even putting up that much of a fight. I mean, it's just not impressive. And I know that they are at home now, so they might be able to get a result since Fulham really seem to play a lot better at home than away. But Sunderland, I mean, before the international break, of course, they drew against Arsenal in dramatic fashion. And that was at home and they had the crowd in their back. But I can't shy away from the fact that they have looked really, really solid. I mean, where are they at the table right now? They're fourth. That's just incredible. Only behind Chelsea, City, and Arsenal. So I'm gonna stick my head out and go for a Sunderland 2-1 away win. Moving on to Liverpool taking on Forest at home. And this one, just have to say it, I actually think it's going to be a quite comfortable Liverpool win. As much as I like Sean Dyche, the football doesn't suit playing a team like Liverpool, does it? I mean, maybe I jinx it now. Maybe they will win at Anfield. But even though Liverpool's form has been a bit shaky, they managed to get this win over Real Madrid, which was very, very, very decent, has to be said. Real Madrid were quite big favorites there, but Liverpool really outplayed them, I thought. And then 2-0 win before that against Aston Villa. And Liverpool have been better at home this season, even though they have picked up losses against the likes of Manchester United. Of course, they got thrashed by City last time out, but that was away, and City are probably, in my opinion, but that's it's a bit controversial. I believe that City are the best team in the league right now. Arsenal fans, leave me alone. But Nottingham Forest, though, I mean, the results haven't been too bad. That 2-0 win against Porto is actually really impressive. I believe that Porto were undefeated before playing Forest there. And Forest are not poor by any means, but an injury to Douglas Luiz, I think, is quite crucial. And Hudson Odoi as well being away from the first team. I mean, it's Sean Dyche. You should never count him out, but I'm going to predict a quite comfortable 2-0 win for Liverpool on Saturday. And then the last of the five 3 o'clock kickoffs on Saturday is Wolves taking on Palace. And this is, in my opinion, the most interesting one because, as you probably know, it's Rob Edwards' first game in charge of Wolverhampton Wanderers. And will they get that new manager bounce? I think it's quite a possibility, to be honest. Even though not all managers manage to bring that, I think that Edwards is a coach that can. Palace, of course, a very, very decent side so far this season. However, similar to Fulham, they have been a lot better at home than they have been away. And I wouldn't be surprised if Wolves managed to get something out of this game. Brighton, of course, lost drew against Brighton, had a lot of big chances, but so did Brighton, to be fair. Wolves, yeah, I mean, their form streak here really speaks for itself. But Rob Edwards might be the man to turn it all around. I think beating Palace is a tough ask, though. It would require something quite special from Wolves. But maybe Edwards has the mentality to instill it into his players to achieve that. However, I'm going to predict a 1-1 draw in this game. Moving on to the last game for the Saturday, it's Newcastle taking on City at home at St James's Park. And I know I sound like a broken record when I always bring this up, but Newcastle with the crowd in their back is really a sight to behold. I mean, I've talked about Fulham and Crystal Palace being a lot better at home than away, and some people think that's true with all teams. I really don't. There are a lot of teams that actually seem to do a bit better away, even though that's quite illogical, has to be said. However, if there's a team in the Premier League that epitomizes being good at home and poor away, it is Newcastle. I mean, if we're going to take a quick look here on their results so far this season, of course, lost away against both West Ham and Brentford. Won at home in the Champions League against Bilbao quite comfortably. Only lost with 1 goal at home against Barcelona, which is actually not too bad. And then it's just the tail of the tape here. The home games, very good. Away games, not so good. But even, like I said, the losses here against Barcelona and Arsenal at home, losing with 1 goal is really not a shame, to be honest. Will they be able to get something here against Manchester City, though? I mean, Man City, like I mentioned previously, probably the best team in the league, in my opinion at least. But they aren't unbeatable, as Unai Emery has proved this season. Tough one this, has to be said. City have looked incredible, especially Erling Haaland, who just carried his Norway to their first World Cup in about 28 years. Is he enough to defeat Newcastle? I know it's quite a harsh way to look at it because City, of course, are a lot more than Erling Haaland, but he's a machine and the front man of the team. I feel like I'm dragging on a bit here, but I actually think this is a lot harder to call. I know that a lot of people are going with the City win here, but I don't want to underestimate Newcastle, especially not when it comes to these bigger games. I'm gonna once again go with an underdog and an upset here and predict a 2-1 Newcastle win. Moving on to the less stacked Sunday, we have the 2 o'clock kickoff, Leeds United taking on Aston Villa at Ellen Road. And in my opinion, this isn't too hard of a game to call. I think it's going to be quite an easy and comfortable Aston Villa away win, just because of the fact that Leeds haven't looked good this season. There was a part of the start of the season where I thought they looked alright and deserved to get a bit more other games than they actually did. But since then, losing to Burnley, arguably the worst team in the league, 3-0 away against Brighton. That could have been 5, to be honest. And then losing against Forest as well before the international break here. Even though these are away games, and Leeds obviously are a bit better at home, but not good enough to outclass Unai Emery's Aston Villa side. I just don't believe that. Daniel Farke against Unai Emery in a managerial matchup is a nightmare for Leeds fans. And when you look at the squads as well, it's just not gonna happen, is it? I mean, if anything, it's the crowd that can make the difference here, but I don't think that's gonna be enough. And I'm gonna predict a 2-0 away win for Aston Villa. And then moving on to the biggest game of the entire game week, it's the North London derby, Arsenal taking on Tottenham at home. Will this be an easy Arsenal win? Quite possibly. However, as you probably know, Arsenal have quite a few big injuries here. Even though Saka is back now and that makes a lot of difference, it doesn't show here, but I think Victor Jokers is still out. He wasn't active or even on the bench for Sweden in the international break. Gabriel, arguably, actually, in my personal opinion, Arsenal's best player, even though he's a centre back. It's not the flashy choice, I know, but I believe that anyway. He got injured against Senegal in a friendly game. If I was an Arsenal fan, I would be fuming with Ancelotti to risk him in a game like that. However, Arsenal are just good enough to be able to win this game, I believe, without the likes of Odegaard, Gabriel, Calafiori, and possibly Victor Gyökeres. Because Spurs, I mean, we can take a quick look here at their form. If we're going to be brutally honest, against Manchester United at home most recently, before the international break, they got outplayed in big parts of the game, and I know they were close to winning it, but that just shows the mentality of Tottenham as well. I mean, Richarlison ripped his shirt off when the game wasn't even over, and so celebrated it like it was a Champions League final, and then went on to draw. And Paulinho did the same thing against Wolves, I believe it was, when he secured a draw. I mean, taking your shirt off for a draw against lesser teams. I mean, what's going on, Spurs? It's just not the mentality needed to beat a team like Arsenal. It can't be. Even though Arsenal, of course, drew against Sunderland, I actually think that Sunderland is a better team than Tottenham just at this moment, but that might be a hot take as well. I'm going to predict an Arsenal win, and I'm gonna go with a 2-1 here. And then to finish off with some Monday Night Football, it's Manchester United taking on Everton at home. Is this as easy to call as the odds suggest? I'm a bit torn. Manchester United are a lot better at home, obviously. I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot here, but it's really the case. Everton, however, are quite bad at home and away, in my opinion. I don't believe that they have enough to beat this Manchester United side, even though they have a few injuries. Of course, Benjamin Sesko, bit of a knockback there that his injury got, or his return, should I say, got postponed. Was supposed to be able to play for Slovenia in the international break. However, he seems to be out for a few more weeks. But Ruben Amorim hasn't even started him in some games when he has been fit. And this more so comes down to the fact that I think Everton are very, very poor. Their playing style doesn't really suit any kind of opposition, and the centre backs, especially, are very easy to exploit for a lot of players. Tarkovsky and Keane, I believe, are the two who used to be starting for Everton. to put Cunha, Ahmad, and Embuemo against those two at Old Trafford, I think it's a disaster for any Everton fans. I'm gonna go ahead and predict a 2-0 Manchester United win to close out this game week. So all in all, it's great to have the Premier League finally back after what feels like an eternity, even though it's only been a couple of weeks. Of course, keep your eye out for that North London derby on Sunday, and actually have a look at the Brighton Brentford game on Saturday as well, because I think that one is going to be a banger. But that's all from me. Thank you guys a lot for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.